So we're going to kind of pick up where we left off out there and go through a few more stories. And then we're going to talk about what we're doing to combat some of this stuff. At any point, please ask a question. For time and things, I may kind of bump the question back to the end, but I definitely want to make sure we address whatever you have. So, talk about fake news, right? I can't emphasize enough how important this stuff really is. And so I start off by just talking about Faxploit. This was at What the Facts, things that hit Black Hat this year. I don't know if anyone pays attention or looks at this, but this was an exploit that came out against our fax units, our pro-level series devices. A group of researchers took about 2 years to reverse engineer the information, and were able to inject code to the pro-level devices through fax. Same thing we talked about earlier, using print methods in different communications to hit the interpreters. They were able to kind of replicate that through a fax machine. Pro-level devices share the fax boards with the network cards, and that's why that exploit was there. Our enterprise devices are completely separate. The same with the Canons and other manufacturers, how we all keep them separate, is why they weren't part of that exploit. Good news was, these guys are good guys, they're white hats. They came to us as researchers, said, hey, this is what we found, let's work with you. We're going to teach you what we did, let you reproduce it and create a fix. Once we're able to create a fix, then we were able to put the bulletin out there, right, to make sure that everything was complete so we can launch it into the world. And then they went out of Black Hat and said, guess what? So this is where they started, and now they're moving into other areas of fax. They're going after the entire technology. They want to go after fax servers and all OEMs. Because fax, to most of us, is a dead technology and it's not secure by any means. The cell phone antenna. Hope you guys like that story out there. The most important thing to me is how he's able to get in the network undetected. The only time you're going to pick that up really is like a firewall would see it from printer to phone because they shouldn't be talking. If you have a separate VLAN set up between them, they won't talk, and so that can't happen. But you can protect that through passwords and a few things I'm going to show you. However, firewalls don't pick up that print shot, right? Hits the device, it may get detected hitting the phone, but once it hits the phone, it's no longer playing on the network, it's vibrating boards. I don't know if you picked that up, the radio frequency is actually him vibrating boards and picking that up on AM radio. He calls it Tom Cruise, his little Radio Shack radio, that he picks it up and turns it back to binary. And so it's just super interesting. It's out there. You go to YouTube and type in FUNTENNA, and you'll actually see some of the Russian kids using the Fontana to attack people. It's open source code, so it's out there. And there's a lot of articles that are out there talking about print security, things that have happened, why it is super important. I've got friends that have been clinically trained in how to attack through printers through their past careers. And we have a bug bounty. We're paying $10,000 for hackers to try and break our devices. Go talk to any other manufacturer in the print world and ask them what they're doing about that. It's the only thing I'm going to say competitive is we're the only ones doing bug bounties. Because here's the reality is, we're on your side. We need to know. We want to have the most secure devices. And we make that claim. And we say that we have the most secure based on our technology. We're not the target. You guys are. You own the printer, not me. Therefore, your devices are going to be exploited, not mine. And so we have to protect you guys. And this is a part of that. Here we talked about the schools. Right, this is just all too often. If you go on that Shodan site, you type in LaserJet, type in Xerox, any manufacturer, anything, you'll find universities all day long. It's really sad. But when we talk about, that was just a bad flyer. What if code was put on there, right? How much more damage could have happened? But here, wireless. Raise your hand if you have wireless printers. Everybody raise your hand, because I can guarantee everyone's got a wireless printer, because no one even thinks about it. We say, no, how many do you have on the network?
Wireless printers?
Just printers in general.
Good question. 50, 60?
Any, the copiers or the?
Mostly large copiers.
Okay. So the reason I say that is because everywhere I go, everyone says, and just a few weeks ago I was in Wisconsin at a hospital. Blue in the face. No, no, no. Policy says no, we don't allow it. So we said, hey, this is a risk assessment. It's interview, no evidence. Let's go check. So we had permission to turn on our Wi-Fi's and look. And first printer was wireless. And they're like, our policy doesn't allow it, no one buys it, but things get forgotten, or they don't have controls in place. So I only just make that as a joke, but the reality is, we think, but when's the last time we checked? It's the same thing about being compliant. We're compliant today, tomorrow, how do we know? Right, without controls in place. But with wireless, what they were doing was actually taking a cell phone, putting it on a drone, flying around the buildings and looking for wireless printers. Connect to it. Hey, does it have default password? It does? Sweet, let's get in. The other attack they did was actually spoofing as a wireless printer. And so now they do the same thing, put the cell phone on the drone, fly around, get someone to connect. So now you have a traveling sales rep. Walks in the building, says I'm going to connect to the printer. Oh, HP 8110 there, sure, whatever. Connect to it. Oh, hey, you need to update driver, press OK. Anything happens, right? Oops. So that was two of the attacks that they had created around those. Here, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, when they got attacked afterwards, this is a lobbying group, not actual government. They still found printers and thermostats talking to China. That was Doom. Anyone seen the Doom challenges out there in the hacking world? Basically, it's you get the kudos, points and recognition if you can get Doom loaded onto a device. So they have digital cameras. They just hit ATMs, was the latest one that was out there in the challenge. Here was just cheap printers. Back in the Samsung days with the Android tablets, before they had to upgrade the firmware because of it, you could load any APK file you wanted. So I used to put Angry Birds on copiers, play it because it was a tablet. It was a 10.1 inch Samsung that they forgot to turn off the APKs. Load any kind of app you wanted. So it used to be fun. So, but here, that's where we look at, that's rogue firmware. Not malicious, it's a game, it's fun. But it's still rogue firmware. So that concept is, hey, we've got to be careful. Columbia, you saw Fontana? Well, Ong got his PhD by picking up printers. He's from Columbia University. In 2011, he was able to actually catch one fire. The way he did it, not just like lighting them, right? But it's in a print job. Change the firmware. Firmware then overheats the fusing by turning the temperature to the max that it can take and sending a couple thousand pages through it. Paper doesn't combust because it has a very high combustion rate compared to the plastic. The plastic melts, becomes like a liquid napalm. He's able to catch them on fire. So the joke is, if you want to beat your competition, just send them a print job. Burn them. You don't have to beat them at the street. But no, but the reality was that's a malicious attack that would look a lot different than someone putting Doom on your printer. Here, just Peter Kemp, pen tester, talking about printers and warehouses. The reality is this is just a hard drive in a warehouse, right? You can walk through any type of warehouse with legacy stuff, just laying around equipment that we're waiting to dispose of. Full hard drives. What can we find? They may be encrypted, but there's still algorithms that can break it. So we can go back through and look at all the overwrites and rewrites that we've done trying to wipe and try and get back to the original binder. Best rule of thumb, don't let a hard drive leave. Destroy it, just like you would servers and all your other hard drives. Destroy it, break it down, get some kind of certificate so that you know it's completed. If it's going back to a leasing company, whatever the fees may be, maybe a couple $100, but if you roll that into the contract, whatever it takes, let's make sure we address that up front. Instead of going, hey, we have new hard drives put in this before it goes back to someone else's office. The truth is that information is there every time you print and scan. That information has to rip and process through that hard drive. And so it's being stored at some point before getting back into the drive and produced for you. So just food for thought. And it's one of the basic rules I always say is rip out the hard drives. Affinity got hit because they sent them back to a leasing company and still had patient information on it, unencrypted. So they were using the file storage in the hard drive. They sent it back and got caught. And here we didn't have data loss prevention in the print stream. So at Montefiore, lady allegedly was able to steal patient information and sell it on the black market. So thinking of this, okay, this might be a weird exception. What do you think is a very common form of data theft out there that every business is susceptible to? This is a class participation part. So think about salespeople. Think about sales reps. You hire someone to come in. Think of Jerry Maguire, right? On his way out, who's coming with me? I'm taking all the folks, I'm calling everyone. that is the company's intellectual property, right? But here we can steal it. So what do sales reps do? They print off their book of business. They keep a stack of things and they try and leave with it. Well, what if we had the technology to know that was happening? To know that a sales rep just printed off 2,000 pages and we're able to see it was all customer information the way the metadata looked. I mean, I hate to put it out there and have Big Brother looking over us more, but the reality is we have to protect what's ours. So we have that technology today. You know, I think almost every manufacturer has it. Symantec is doing it from the server side, from looking at the PC endpoint. Problem is they get a lot of false positives. I just pulled up a 99-page document, I went to print it, and I only printed page 1 and 2, and page 3 had patient information. So then it flagged it as, oopsies, you can't print that. I only printed page 1 and 2, because it doesn't look at the entire stream, it just looks at the PC that it opened up that job. So what we had to do was jump into the print stream and use the metadata from the print stream. So we changed it up a little bit, but it's just that layer of protection that if you feel it's important, we go down that road and we address it. So here's some of the overlooked areas also that we're seeing is on visual hacking. I love. There's actually a video with Jack something or the comedian where he's on the phone, pretending to be on the phone, sitting over people's shoulders, just reading whatever they're doing on their computers. And he's walking around coffee shops and sitting behind people, and it's hilarious. But it's true because we can easily visual hack anything. I'm on a plane every week, and I always start a conversation based on what someone's doing on their PC. I can't help it, it's in my nature, like, dude, look what you're doing. You shouldn't be showing that. I'm sitting next to Dell people, unfortunately. Have a conversation and go, I see your sales numbers. But it always sparks up a conversation because I'm always trying to tell someone, hey, that could be a problem, and help. But what if I walk around an office and just simply look and see what you're writing down, look at your notes. Take patient information and move on. Take sales information, whatever it takes. That is easy, and there's no audit trail. So you can't tell what people looked at. So when we look at clear desk policies, anyone have that in place in your organization? You have to have a clear desk? Lucky. So we do this because we don't want information sitting out. Not always because we want it to look pretty, but we don't want things stolen, we don't want information shared. So we look at the same concepts. Do we have a clear desk policy for our printers? You know, does anyone have like those little file things behind the printer you put everyone's paper? Or do we just say, hey, if it sits on the printer, don't pick it up, leave it, let the next guy get their job? Right, so we just start thinking about this, and depending on what the classification is, if that's important information to you, and you don't want it messed with, why would you leave it sit down on the printer, but you care about securing it while you're looking at it on your computer screen? And so it's just making sure that we're giving the same equal citizenship. Passwords are always going to have a high success for bad guys and data breaches when you are using default passwords. You got to find a way to stop it. You know, we have software that helps to deploy new passwords, but you've got to have policies. And if you've got 50, it makes a lot more sense than if we have 2, if we have 1. You know, and so it's just, you know, it's sometimes easier to manage because you already may have solutions for the rest of your PCs over password management that we can try to enroll and incorporate. But from an individual level, hey, it's just knowing that password and making sure that we're changing it and having rules around it. Peter Kemp, we talked about him earlier. He's just he's a pen tester, he's awesome. But he wrote this book, the Hacker Playbook 2, and he references printers and copiers and going, if you've got them, I'm going to use them to get in. Because he knows, even till today, these things are default settings. People aren't fully locking them down. Has anyone in here actually done a risk assessment on your printers and copiers and said, okay, I've done a full vulnerability scan, we fixed everything, good to go? No one's like me? Okay, so, but that's what we see everywhere, because it's not thought of. So I just want to reiterate some of the tracks around why it's important to us. One, anyone in here not familiar with what a BIOS is? Okay, so just a quick, BIOS is the lowest level of firmware. Whenever you start up any kind of computing unit, it tells you who you are, what you have, and what you're going to do, right? Basic input-output. So if we can own the BIOS, we own the malware protection, we own the firewalls embedded, right? We own everything. So we talk about BIOS a lot because at HP, we're not just a printing company, we are a computing company. We own our own BIOS, We've built it on the PC lab side to protect the SureStart, and I want to talk to you about how we protect BIOS here. But once we get above that, we can protect this from a hardware piece. I can't protect configuration if you guys don't deploy it, right? I can coach and help and give tools, but this responsibility is always going to come down to the end users and the people managing those devices. What we can do is help against some of the human exploits. So on our PC side, we teamed up with Bromium. Anyone familiar with Bromium? I think I've only met one person today that was familiar with Bromium. So we created SureClick. We teamed up with Bromium to use their Chromium browser built into our devices. And what this is, it creates a micro VM, or a virtual machine, to encapsulate every browsing session individually. So now think about this. You set your default, you don't let your end users, when they open up email, it has to go through SureClick, through Bromium. So now, every time I open this up, I got a micro VM running, and I can't get to the hardware. So we can set up all of our rules to protect the emails. We can train our employees. We can do our campaigns to test them. They're still going to fail. Can't fix it. They're the biggest problem on the network. But we love them, right? And we want to keep them. We want everyone happy and working. So we have to have more solutions around it, more layers, because there's no one size fits all. So now we say, okay, from the endpoint side, let's just make sure that every time they click on the internet, it's fully protected. That if they do go to a malicious site and tries to execute anything, it can't get to the hardware. I can close that session, and it's gone. Love seeing the demonstrations when you actually take a known bad site, grab the PC and go to it and click on whatever you want. Close it, not have to worry. Makes us sleep better at night. And so, things that we can't fix though, some of the physical, USB. We talk about protecting all this print stream, but what if the copier is sitting in front of reception and there's no one always watching it, they're able to walk up and throw in a USB and put a code through? Or what if they just take one of those little power busters just to put through and just send a little electronic blast against the boards and just fry the copier? Right? So what's the fix there? Maybe put it behind reception. Right? I mean, just certain things we can look at from a physical aspect to make sure we have those policies. Or we're configuring to say, hey, the USB is turned off, so at least they can't walk up and produce a print image or push something through the USB. Maybe the odds are very slim that they're going to blast our boards out. But one of the elementary schools in Texas thought it was safe until one of their kids bought one online, started blasting PCs in the computer lab. I said, why'd you do it? I don't know. The kid didn't understand what he was doing at the school by taking this little power surge and just blasting all these PCs. But those are the things, we have to have controls for this. Okay, let's keep going. So I don't condone hacking. This is not a lesson. Video high. I'm not teaching anything. All right, so this is Wireshark, and Wireshark is just to show the print packets. As I explained earlier, these things are in the clear, right? Printing is susceptible to be grabbed. So here, just simply put, this was the PC, this was the printer, this was port 9100. So I filtered it down to say, okay, let's find the print port. Took the raw data from the print job, unless you can speak matrix. This means nothing to the naked eye, so I had to do something with it. I then was able to open this up as a PRN file in a text editor, Notepad++. And then I was able to read this information. So this is print job language or the print header. This is what tells me who printed, what they printed, color, black and white, two-sided, what the operating system was from where you sent it, the versions of your PC, who the user was. Anyone use pin printing? You put like a 4-digit code on the driver and then it'll sit on the printer for us. And so if you put that, it actually tells you the code right here. It's encrypted, but then I can get your code so I can just walk in and log in. So if I want to do a cold reset, I can just add in the line of code right here to a print job, send it to your printer, and do a factory reset to it. So what if I just want to do a denial of service attack against your office? Grab all your IPs, send that out, shut everything down, and no longer print. Just a simple, small thing. But what if I wanted to be able to take it back over and change a few settings and make it go back over the network? Bypass your passwords. I could do that way. Remote firmware upgrades. They were done this way in the past. You use PJL to put the firmware codes in, send the job out. So this is how you embed attacks. You don't want to stop this. Put a password in the top line. You actually embed the driver. PGL password. It doesn't match, it's an implicit deny. It just drops the packet when it hits. Print job comes, it just prints it based on the printer defaults and forgets all this. Right? So that's how we stop that. We protect it if we want to do that. Here, the last line is going to tell us what the language is below. So we can also put PostScript. Say allow PostScript, and we can embed code that way. There's Pret out there. It's a printer exploit toolkit. Jens goes into all this stuff. It's very interesting, and I can talk 4 hours on all that. It's a great tool, though. But this is what the image looks like from data side. I can simply take a command file and turn this into an image. Very simple. So in the clear means in the clear, right? Here's all the info. Just take a simple command file, turn the PR into an XPS or PDF or an XPS. And this took me like 4 minutes because I had a screenshot. But if you can get the wire, if you can get any kind of capture on it, let it sit all day, go home and just filter out all the ports. Grab port 9100, grab print jobs to understand what's happening in the network. So, 2 points I want to hit on. Is one, we've got to have governance. We've got to have rules in place and have controls to make sure that we adhere to these rules. Whatever they may be. We don't let flyers printed from our kids, right? We don't do our yard sale flyers, let everyone come in and print those off at work. Right, that's a rule. And we have a way of enforcing it. Don't do it, right? That might be the way we enforce it. Just tell them, don't do it. But we have to have something in place so our employees know this. Another rule I look at is risk assessments. Just know your risk. Categorize your information. What needs to be secure and what is low risk and what's high risk. So that we can create rules around it. Typically, you're going to go through the hygiene software. You're going to upgrade your machines. We know you're going to hold on to those HP printers as long as possible. I get it. But through risk assessments, at least you'll be aware of what you're accepting. And then you have better information to make those decisions. And so I'm going to go into what we're putting in. One, we've got the services. Anytime you need help, advice, we're going to go through Lake. Lake can reach out to me and I can help answer questions. If you need a deep dive, we have advisory services. We can do full risk assessments. Right now, let's just talk hardware. So we have to be able to manage that hardware. Right? We have to be able to push out deployment of policies, make sure we always adhere to it. And we have to have secure devices. So what do these devices look like? Well, one, we stick to our methodology of protect, detect, and recover. One, we've got to have the most secure device. Two, devices get broken. I don't care who you are. The device can be broken, right? It's not a matter of if, it's when. These things happen. That's why we're doing bug bounties, right? That's why we have patches, all these bulletins, because we find breaks and we fix. And so when these happen, we need to be able to recover, get them off the network, get them back on as fast as possible so that you have the continuity required. And so what we built now is our Sure Start. This is what I said is our BIOS protection that came from our PCs. What this is, I keep a golden copy of the BIOS from the factory. This is what I have to have. This is secure. So every time I start up, we do an integrity check. If it matches that golden copy, the machine's allowed to move on. If it doesn't, it deletes it, restarts, and reloads that BIOS from the golden copy. Therefore, we always have the integrity check. Since we don't do BIOS updates on printers, like we do on PCs, we've got to have that whitelisting for the upper level firmwares, because that's the firmware we're going to upgrade. Whitelisting is just a bouncer at the door. Hey, if you're not on the list, you don't match, you're not allowed through, you're not getting in. Just an easy way to look at it. Runtime intrusion. So this is, you wouldn't buy a PC if you couldn't put malware on it, correct? If you had no way to detect it, manage it, understand what's happening in that memory, this is what we put in there. This is our anomaly-based monitoring of the memory. We don't want to do signature-based where these devices have to reach out all the time and sit here and become beacons to the internet to get updates. We do updates to the runtime through some firmware, but it's anomaly-based. That way it's self-containing. You can run 24/7 and know, hey, we just had 6 attempts at a login, not normal. We just had a couple PostScript errors back-to-back, not normal. So when it breaks this, it actually shuts it down to clear the memory and starts back over from a clean state. And then lastly, that was our big three. We created that, and then we said, hey, if anything can be broken, because it might, what do? So we look at the connection inspector, and this is that protection against the outward communications, DNS queries, right? If malware gets on the network, it's going to reach out and say, hey, what do I do now? So this is that outbound traffic going out of the box, anomaly-based. Hey, I just had 100 DNS queries. Machine shouldn't do that. Hopefully your firewall isn't picking this up, right? But the reality is we still need the machine to be aware to shut this down and get it fixed. So out of the box, anomaly. But you can simply configure it and say, let's whitelist. Let's say these are the only computers you can speak to outbound. This is all you can talk to, DNS queries, everything. Whitelist it, if it speaks outside of it, it'll shut down automatically, restart, and go through the whole security process again. Make sense? And then security manager. So this is what we talked about, this is the next step. Security manager is very simple. We create a security policy, we've got it built into the software for an easy baseline to start with. You'll build upon that. We can take the policy, create this. This is like passwords. Embedded web server. Do we have the FTP server turned on or off? Well, the policy is going to say have it turned off. Telnet, are we allowing Telnet? All these different ports that may be open that aren't needed. Set the security settings. Then you add all your HP devices. I emphasize HP. HP Samsung, because Samsung is now under the HP ARM as we bought their print division, and so they're working with the security manager. It's not going to work outside of the HP devices. Next, we assess that policy against those devices. So simply, here's what I said the machines have to have. Go check it. Give me a score. What machines have the setting, what machines don't. This helps when we look at legacy devices. This is our own risk assessment, right? So I said encryption on the hard drives must be at SHA-1 AES 256. So now I have some legacy stuff that's MD5, right? And it's like, okay, hey, that didn't pass. And you can classify it as a high risk or low risk. But at least you know the risk that you have in your environment. After we assess, guess what? We set up remediation. This automates it for me. So if I say password needs to be 1234, and I hope it's not what you're doing, but if it is set for that, as it does an assessment, and you tell it to remediate, if it finds that it is not true, it'll go ahead and fix it for you and add it to that report. To say this machine was remediated, we found this error, here's how we fixed it. It'll also give you a compliance report, letting you know afterwards that everything is now compliant or what is not compliant and why. So you have an attack list. And then we talk about encryption. The only way you're going to encrypt is through certificates. No one encrypts today, I'll tell you this right now. Not once have we walked into an environment from the best Fortune 100 companies to the smallest company ever. No one encrypts until they have a solution to help deploy certificates because it takes 15 minutes device. This automates it. You set it up once, unique certificate across the board. And there's the results of what it looks like. So I apologize, I know I ran a few minutes over. I just wanted you to see this, and this is the next step. This is what we're saying, is we're gonna send Lake in, I'm gonna work with them, and they can do this for you. No charge, we can get this assessment done in your environments to let you know the health of your fleet. I do have an announcement. In closing, all the raffle winners have been drawn or are displayed on the front reception area. Stop by on your way out to see if you are a winner. And please stop by the East Coast Custards truck for a sundae on your way out. I guess they're going to be up front now. Okay. Because earlier they talked about it being in the back. But this is that assessment that easily can be done. In an hour, we can do a full scan. And so we have a team set up that remotely takes care of it for you, and we bring in your resource and contacts at Lake, and then I can get on the phone as well and walk you through the results. So thank you very much for your time today, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.